Welcome back to Wizard Supercoach. Bit touch and go today whether I'd even get this video out. I've come home from work and my wife and kids, they're all sick. So yeah, the only way I could describe my house right now is a hellhole, and I'm having to do a lot. So I'm a bit frazzled today and a bit stressed. So probably not going to be the usual standard in this video. Not that it was terribly high with the others to begin with, in my opinion, but you know, just a warning, I guess, and a bit of an apology in that case. So what this video is, it's this year's forwards and how they performed pre and post bye last year. Now, again, you're probably wondering, why is that relevant to Supercoach? Well, I think it is because things change quickly in footy, and basically the pre-bye stuff is now ancient history. I mean, the post-bye stuff's not incredibly relevant, I guess, either, given that a lot has changed in terms of lists and things like that, but it's the most recent snapshot that we have, I think. And you know, there's indicators here that can show us danger signs for certain players and room for improvement for others if a few things get up. And I mean, that's pretty much that's the game of Supercoach in a nutshell. That's what we're looking for. So yeah, it's the top 10 from this year's forwards, like top 10 most expensive, plus anyone that's deemed relevant. So that's not necessarily by me, but it's just players that people are talking about and players I've heard coming up a fair bit. So yeah, of course, as usual, no sub games included, no finals included. You're probably thinking, well, if you want a recent snapshot, why not include the finals? I guess it's, you know, trying to keep it fair. A lot of these players didn't even play finals. Plus, in my opinion, finals is a completely different sport. Like, you watch home and away versus watching finals, and it is just crazy different. So yeah, that's the simple answer. Now, there's no Bailey Smith here, no Thilthorpe, no Parker, etc. You probably noticed that pretty quick. There's a reason why. It's pretty obvious. Smith didn't play last year. Thilthorpe and Parker didn't play in the first half of the year, so there's no point including them. Start with Philippou at the top. So obviously, like most of these, the most interesting ones, they're going to be at the top and the bottom, and they're the easiest ones, I think, to work out. But yeah, Philippou, he asked to go to the VFL halfway through the year. He returned a completely different player, and he had, you know, a bump in his CBAs, but that wasn't the whole story. He still scored okay in his last game, and he had no CBAs in that game. So that's a really good sign. That means he's shown now that he can score with and without them. The injuries are still an issue, I think. I mean, he didn't play many games in the second half of the year, but you know, it's not exactly an epidemic. Like, he's only young, so I expect this to continue. It's somewhat, you know, doing that deeper look into it, it's made him a better pick in my eyes. And that's what this is for, I think, is, you know, you see a discrepancy like this of 52.5 points. That's massive. It makes you look at why, like what caused that. And for most of these players, it is quite interesting, I think, what did cause that. And that's what's going to help us with this year, I think. So you'll notice in the second spot here, I've got the player name covered. Without Googling it or looking up anywhere, I want you to be honest with yourself and have a guess. I'll be very surprised if anyone can guess who this player is, because I wasn't expecting to find this at all, and I pretty much just stumbled across it by accident in another video. But that 106.4 is the highest post-bye average of any forward for this year, from last year. So yeah, I'll come back to him at the end. Give you some time to think. If you think you can get it, I'll be very impressed if anyone can honestly say they guessed it, because that is an incredible discrepancy here. Yeah, I'll move on. So Caleb Daniel. Now, admittedly, that post-bye average, he only played 2 games that weren't sub-affected, so it's a bit misleading, I guess, but it does show that he can still score. One of those games, or even both maybe, because I looked at the heat maps, but he played half forward as well, so he can still score, like, well. He's still a good player. Just he got absolutely bevoed. He also scored well in the final. I think he tonned up or thereabouts as well, even though that's not included. But I think he's just about the biggest lock right now, as long as he stays healthy. And we know he's going to have that North ball half back position that every Supercoach loves. So, yeah, lock him in. So Simpkin, he also had the massive jump here, 35.7 on average in the post-buy. This is an easy one to explain. So his CBAs went from 34% on average in the pre-buy to 64% in post-buy. So it's as simple as that. The only thing is he going to keep those CBAs? So we know that these young North midfielders are probably going to keep rising in their CBA percentage. And now he's also got Parker to contend with. So it kind of makes no sense, I guess, if you go on with the youth to throw like Simpkin out for Parker. But in my opinion, Parker obviously has had a much better career. He's that experienced general type. So I think he's going to get CBA time. So I can see Simpkin dropping back down. And we can see here, if that's the case, that he's just not a pick at all. Brent Daniels, I don't think he's incredibly Supercoach relevant, but he was in the top 8 or whatever it was. So he must have done something right. I don't have any idea why he spiked so high in the second half of the year. So if there's any Giants supporters, and I know there's not many of you out there, and that's not a dig at all. I quite like the Giants myself. If you know why, or you think you know why, please tell me in the comments, because I'll be interested to see why. Because, you know, a 24-point increase is pretty damn good. So the only thing I could see is that he had one random game, like a once in a blue moon thing, where he scored 195 points in the post-buy. So that's going to inflate that a little bit, but I guess not to that degree. He still had 4 other tons as well post-buy. So yeah, he did really well. Matt Kennedy here. So this was definitely an interesting one. I was not expecting this. So his average has gone up by 14 points in the second half of the year, but his CBAs on average halved. Now, I've always been of the belief that Kennedy, the more CBAs he gets, like if he goes to the Bulldogs and he gets more than he was getting at Carlton, he's going to be hopefully a pick. That's not necessarily true by the look of this. And again, this is why I've done this, is it forces you to look in places where you wouldn't normally look. So he had a bit of a TOG increase as well, obviously because he's spending time forward instead of in the midfield. And yeah, that's what he's done. So I don't know, does this make him more of a pick or less of a pick in your eyes? Because I think he's worth looking at. He's definitely in the conversation. I mean, he's an awkward price. I think he's around that 400k mark, just off the top of my head. But yeah, if he's scoring, like, let's say he averages 90, that's not the worst, I think. I think it's still going to be like top 8 forward, just going by what we got last year or whatever. So yeah, that's not too bad. Sorry, just kind of forgot where I was up to there. So Dylan Moore, his is very simple. So he's had the 12-point bump there. That just coincides with the Hawks' form in the second half of the year. They were like chalk and cheese, pre-buy, post-buy. So I think that's pretty easy to explain. Nothing changed with him in terms of like CBAs, goals, disposals, nothing like that. Nothing that stood out. So, yep, that's an easy one. Tracy or Tracy, I'm not sure how you say it. He's here because he was top 10 Supercoach. Yeah, he's not relevant too much, I think, if at all. His is another pretty easy explanation. So he got less CBAs post-buy when Darcy was back, and hence he spent more time forward and his goal average increased. So that's where the 9 points seems to have come from. Not that it really matters, seeing as I don't think anyone's going to pick him, but who knows? That's this time of year, you leave no stone unturned. I think everyone pretty much is worth a look to some degree. So these middle guys here, from like Darcy through to, let's say, Wilson, you know, they're close enough here, pre and post, that it's not really even worth talking about. There's nothing really to investigate there. The only one I will say is McRae. I think I've been a little bit harsh on him. He got absolutely bevoed, and to still, you know, get these 80 scores here, either side of the bye. He's done all right considering that all that would have been weighing on him mentally a lot. So I'm somewhat warming to him as a pick. He's in my team currently, so I'm just getting more confident in him. Definitely more than I am with Smith, who currently isn't in my team. So I think it starts to get relevant again here in terms of the differential. Curnow, I think he just was carrying an injury and it was just an overall loss of form or confidence or something. He just didn't look himself at all. So usually that comes from carrying some injury. That may have came out last year. If it did, I've forgotten. So sorry about that. But yeah, I know he did end up injured anyway. But yeah, it was pretty horrific. I'm never picking him again anyway. Just that, he was meant to have that really nice run towards the end of the year, and he just stunk it up. Like, I think there was one game where he scored like 30, so he was one of the major reasons why I basically rage quit the game and lost interest towards the end of last year. Not the only reason, but he was definitely one of them, so never again. Jason Horne-Francis, this is a worrying one for people wanting to pick him, and I'll obviously explain why. First half of the year, he was getting almost 60% CBAs on average, 59 point something. Second half of the year, that dropped down to 47%. And he was spending more time forward. Now, we know that he's a fairly effective forward, so obviously Ken, out of all those midfielders that he has, and remember that they really only use 5. Jackson Mead takes, I think, just under 20% CBAs as the 6th man, but yeah, it's really only the 5 that they use. Now, Horne-Francis is the most effective forward out of those, I would say. So, you got to think, Ken Hinkley's not worried about Supercoach. He's wanting to win games and keep prolonging his zombie career. So, he's probably going to keep Horne-Francis forward a bit. Now, yeah, this is worrying because they had a deep run in the finals, and I can see Ken persisting with this somewhat. If you look at Port's spread in the midfield, I think Rosie and Butters are probably going to increase their CBAs. And if they want to develop Mead at some point, he's probably going to increase too. I can't see Wines or Drew really dropping off too much, which means someone's going to be squeezed. And I think Horne-Francis will be the one. He'll probably spend more time half forward. If that's if it's anyone, if it does change. But this is what worries me, because probably tomorrow, or at least in the very near future, there'll be another video showing forwards that score better in losses and wins. And again, it's not looking good for Horne-Francis there. But yeah, as I always say, these videos can't be taken in isolation. They don't tell the whole story, so that's why I mentioned that. But yeah, this is very, very worrying for people looking to pick Horne-Francis, and I'm one of them. So yeah, I think we just got to keep an eye on that as much as we can at this time of year. I'll move on. Luke Jackson, obviously he was top 10, so I've included him. I think he's a lot less relevant this year because of the flex. I mean, if you're playing a ruck, which most people are in their flex position, and let's say you've got a loophole as your ruck 3, you don't really need as much that coverage from the forward line anymore, so that link is a lot less relevant. The only way I think he's relevant is if obviously Darcy goes down, but he's looking good, so it's probably not going to happen. Anyway, I thought it would be interesting to investigate why this happened anyway. So, yeah, basically, once Darcy came back, Jackson's parked forward, and his 2 biggest scores were in the first half of the year, which were 178 and 154, and that was without Darcy. So that's inflated his pre-buy to 101, and then, yeah, Darcy's come back, and it's dropped right down, so that's easy as. Not going to worry about Mackay. He's similar to Curnow, I guess. I think he ended up injured as well. Bolton, he had a small drop in CBAs in the second half of the year, which was 6% drop. But to be honest, I think he just gave up mentally. I mean, most people would in his position. Richmond won 2 games. You know, you get to the halfway point of the season, you've won 1 game. You're probably not going to be, you know, too amped about it, are you? Especially when you're already a triple premiership player. So I guess that's going to be different at Freo because we all expect them to be a lot stronger this year. People think they'll be contending for the flag. The interesting thing here is that he's not training with the Freo mids, if the pre-season training reports are anything to go by. I mean, that's not saying that he won't get CBAs, but we already know that he somewhat relies on them to get those premium scores. So, yeah, that's a worry. But, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into this year just because of the mental thing. But, yeah, he's relevant, so he's there. So Sanders, he takes the gong for the biggest drop post-buy. He just got completely bevoed. I mean, that is not how you deal with a high draft pick in his first season. Anyone could see in that first game that the kid was bloody good. Yeah, I don't know. I'll never work out Bevo. He's just a strange cat. He's only given Sanders 4 non-sub games post-buy, so it's a small sample size right there. His TOG increased a little bit on average, but he got pushed out to the wing, so everyone knows the wing in terms of Supercoach is pretty much no man's land. It's just, you know, you can score okay, but not enough to be really relevant unless you're a rookie, like a bargain price rookie, with the exception, I guess, of Goulden. But, you know, Goulden's getting like close to 100% time on ground as well, so there's that to keep in mind. But yeah, Sanders, I think he's shown enough that if he can get more opportunity in 2025, he's worth looking at. It's just, I don't know, is he going to get the opportunity? Who can ever tell with Bevo? He clearly needs those CBAs though to be scoring, and obviously to not be the sub. So I guess Bulldogs have lost. Well, they've gained Kennedy, but I mean, I guess Smith didn't even play this year, so it's not like they've lost him and Sanders can replace him because he already would have been, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't be picking Sanders based on this unless, you know, he absolutely goes off at the start or something and we can see that Bevo's going to persist with him. So that's it for all of them, and I'll come back now to the mystery player. Now, yeah, again, be honest. Like, don't search it or whatever. But if you guessed Ben Keys, you were correct. Now, I'm an absolute hardcore Crom Nuffy, as you probably know, and I didn't guess that. I didn't see that coming at all. Like that, he just went under the radar massively, and he would have been priced so low. I could look it up easily, I guess, but I didn't. He would have been priced though so low, looking at this pre-buy average. So had you bought him in, I reckon he would have been the best bang for buck last year. I mean, players like Flanders and that, they obviously outscored him by a bit on the post-buy run, but for what you would have paid for him, his points to dollar ratio would be insane for that. So yeah, who would have thought that Ben Keys probably would have been the post-buy pick of the whole league, or at least in terms of the forward? Certainly not me. So yeah, he's going to now start appearing in the forward relevant videos, as, you know, people think, oh, he's not a pick or whatever. Well, that may be true, but it is impossible, I think, or you would be insane to ignore a whole half a year where he scored 106. So, you know, he might bust or whatever, but it's worth a look. Everyone's worth a look, and certainly when they've put that on the board. So, looking at why that happened, I actually can't really work it out, if I'm honest. He had the tiniest bump in CBAs, but it's like a couple of percent. It's not much at all. So it's obviously not that. Now, people think that he plays as a forward pocket, but really, if you look at his heat maps and stuff, he plays more as a half forward. And I think he's a bit like Sam Flanders and Sheasel in the way that they start a lot on the half forward flank, like when they got moved there, and then they just kind of follow the ball and they push up, play like an extra midfielder. That's purely from the eye test with Keys, I'm saying, but yeah, the heat maps kind of back that up. Now, basically all his stats, including goals, increased post-bye. I think, in my opinion, the most likely thing is that after you know, how much, like a half a season of playing that forward role, I think it just clicked with him. It's as simple as that. I think that he just got used to it and he worked out how things work. Because if you remember, he's always been more of a midfielder or whatever. So he was used as a tagger for a while, things like that. So yeah, if you consistently play forward, I think eventually you're going to get better at it, and he did. So whether that makes him worth a pick or anything this year, I mean, he's priced in the 400s now, so he's that real awkward price. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think in the comments? Because I'm sure not many people would have been expecting Keys as that mystery player. Yeah, I think I'll end it off now. I don't have much time. As I said, it's a bit of a miracle that I even got this video out with what's going on at home. But I'm keen to keep the streak rolling. What's today? The 5th day, I think. So, how many more to go? 43, I believe. It's going to take some effort, but we'll get there. So again, thanks for watching. People have, I saw, yeah, a lot of good comments. So some of them are just, it's hard to reply to all of them in depth. I think leave questions in the comments if you want to, and I'll answer them on upcoming videos. But yeah, I'm really loving the back and forth on the comments. Honestly, wasn't expecting so many, or yeah. Sorry, I'm just, as I said at the start of the video, I'm not myself. I'm heads all over the place. I'm frazzled. So I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll definitely be seeing you tomorrow.